Hi, folks. Welcome back to the Creating Your Conditions podcast, a work of understanding career and life experiences. What are the conditions you were given, the conditions you have made for yourself, and what more do you want in life? Your host is me. My name is Vin. I use they, them, theirs pronouns. I'm an avid reader, a connector of humans, a professional fundraiser with 7 years of nonprofit experience, and more recently, a creator. In today's episode, I am interviewing Alex, who uses they, them pronouns, and is a native of sunny San Diego. They enjoy making and snacking on crunchy foods, making music on the computer, watching animated movies, playing video games, and improving their tennis skills. Alex studied electrical engineering during their undergraduate years, but shifted into mental health after reflecting on how family, belonging, and chronic pain shaped her life. They hope to work at the intersection of community, mental health, climate justice, and art. So without further ado, I leave you with this episode. Thank you for being here. All right, welcome to the podcast, Alex.
Hello, good to be here.
Excited to have you today. Yeah, you want to just dive right in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. First question for you is, what? Sorry, I always blink out a little bit. I'll cut this out. Where are you from, and what was it like growing up there?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in San Diego. And yeah, I spent 29 years kind of in different parts. My parents settled in City Heights after they migrated from Vietnam, and so we were there for a little bit. And then I spent some time in La Mesa, and then moved up into like the North County area after like maybe fourth grade or so.
Cool. And what prompted your parents to move to San Diego?
I think at the time, San Diego seemed to be like the hub for where refugees were settled. I don't know if there was some sort of contract with certain cities for them to be a place where they took in refugees, but San Diego was one of these few cities where a lot of Vietnamese refugees came in through to the US. And I think just a lot of people from other different countries too also settled in San Diego.
Okay. Um, and so why did your parents choose it? I guess, other than
Oh,
knowing that there might be other refugees here.
hmm. Yeah, I don't know if it was a choice. That's something I actually do want to ask them. I think when they were migrating and trying to, I don't know if it was necessarily seeking asylum, but they were waiting for other countries to let them in. And so I think there was like Canada, Germany, France, Australia. There was a few countries, and I think the US was one of them, but I don't know if they can necessarily choose which city they were going to be like living in. So that's actually something I want to ask them.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Why did they want to leave Vietnam?
I think there was a lot of things. One part is because of the government there. Um, I think what I heard about and learned about was just that you were expected to join the military there. And so if you didn't join, you were forced into jail. Whatever profits you made from your business or work, they would be confiscated by the government, and then they would reallocate it. And I think it was usually really corrupt, so I wasn't really sure how those funds were reallocated. And so it was just unsustainable to live in the country. Um, I don't think there was a lot of jobs too, because I think there were some policies that were put in place where a lot of different businesses had to leave Vietnam. So it was hard to find work. The work you did have was just taken away and taxed. And yeah, I think there was like really nothing for them to be able to sustain themselves for while they were there. Yeah.
And when was this? time period?
So I think like Vietnam became fully communist in like the mid 70s, but I don't think my parents actually left until the early 80s. Late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, and so yeah, I think my parents got to San Diego around like my mom, dad, like somewhere in the early like 82 or so.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've been there a long time at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah. Yeah, now we're at 50 years. Oh, yeah, they've been here for 50 years, so that's more than half of their lives.
Hmm. Yeah, that's kind of wild to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, what was growing up like for you in San Diego, in like some of these neighborhoods being very Vietnamese, some not so?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when my family was in City Heights, kind of the more refugee immigrant neighborhood, I don't think I really remembered it. I was way too young, but I think what I do remember was when we moved to La Mesa, which is like maybe more middle class, more white. Um, I think it felt safe-ish. Like, I think my dad and mom had car break-ins a few times. I think my mom's car was stolen once. But I think that area was known to be pretty safe. But then after fifth grade, I moved up to like the North County area of San Diego, and that's where I think I had like one of the biggest shocks, where people were like pretty squarely middle class, like doing pretty well. I was like one of the few Asian kids that were up there. And so I think that's where I really started kind of disconnecting from who I really was. I think I had a period where I just didn't feel like I belonged, and I also didn't really want to identify as like an Asian person, like a Chinese and Vietnamese person. I think I found myself wanting to be white often because that's what other people were. Um, and so I think that was like a really tough time, like growing up in that neighborhood. Um, it was also tough for my parents because they had to commute way farther. And then there wasn't commuting. There wasn't any supermarkets that had people that looked like them. There wasn't many restaurants where they could enjoy Chinese or Vietnamese food. So it was really tough. It was like really lonely, I think, for them and also for me to not really have people who were from our background, who spoke the language we spoke, and just had like similar life experiences.
Chew.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned this a little bit, and I just want to give context to listeners because you said Chinese and Viet, and so a lot of Chinese folks immigrate to other areas, at least especially in that time period, because of the creation of the People's Republic of China and the communist regime and everything. So is that one of the reasons your family did too?
Yeah, I think so that happened probably in my great grandparents' generation, and that's where I don't really have a clear picture because like yeah, three of my grandparents I never got to meet or have like memory of, and then
Yeah.
my like last remaining grandparent, we don't even speak the same language, so I can't really hear about what that migration story is about. But yeah, I think most people, I think my family fled China from like the Cultural Revolution. And that's how they ended up in Vietnam, where they were also like a minority too. Yeah.
Yeah. Just wanted to give that context since that was the first time you said Chinese Viet. And I know that because I took a lot of Chinese history in college. But someone might have just been like, wait, but you said you were Vietnamese this whole time.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
clarification.
But yeah, so it's like they've been refugees in multiple generations in multiple countries, right?
hmm Yeah, a lot of displacement and yeah, I think that's probably what led to a lot of like feelings of not belonging for me. But I think maybe for them they had like a an attachment to being Chinese and also being Vietnamese. Whereas I think I found myself just like, oh, where am I? Who am I? Like what am I supposed to
What?
be?
What
Yeah,
am I?
what am I? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I found,
literally.
because I knew that I looked Chinese. People would refer to me as Chinese, but I didn't want to be Chinese. I wanted to be white. Um, yeah, I just wanted it to be something different. And I think it took a lot of years to actually work through that and to finally now flip the other way and really embrace that. And it still takes time. It still takes time to like yeah, work through all the negative things that I took in.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
did you realize you were Asian?
Oh. That's a good question. Um
Because you kind of alluded to, being in an area where a lot of people look like you. And maybe you don't remember like being in fourth grade and knowing that City Heights is very Vietnamese, and it still is right
mhm,
now. Um,
mhm,
but you remember going to northern San Diego and realizing other people were white and you were not white, right?
mhm. Yeah, yeah. I think so. That was when I started middle school, so I think my brain was, I don't know,
Mm.
maybe more developed, and so I could see that. But I do know when I was like in elementary school, some kid would come up to me and just like start mocking me and talking Chinese or like fake Chinese to tease me, bully me, whatever. And so I think that was like clear to me. I was like, oh, this doesn't feel good. Like, why is this person trying to mock my language?
Mm.
I don't know if that made me really realize like, oh, I am different. I am Asian. Maybe it was towards like my middle school years where that started clicking.
Mm.
Um, yeah, but I think I had this sense of like I'm different from these other people, but I don't know what the words are and I don't know like why. Like what is it about this?
Mm.
Yeah.
What did your parents teach you about your culture and your like heritage?
I think that's yeah, there's some things here and there, but I think they also tried to assimilate and so I think I like yeah, it's like kind of hard to grasp what was still there, but I do know like once a year we would go visit the temple and we would pray, but I think when they were praying, I was like, "What are we praying about?" And then my mom was like, "Oh, I don't know. Just do it because I don't know either."
Because I told you.
Yeah. And so we're like, "Okay, so we don't know why we're praying, but we're just doing it because everyone else is doing it." So I like wish I got like more understanding of like what was like culturally significant of like who we were praying to, why are we praying, what is it supposed to do for us? And I kind of got that with my dad when we took a trip to Vancouver. But as a kid, we were just doing it just to do it. And then my mom would be like, okay, just wish for good health and good luck when you pray. But
Mm.
I was like, I don't know, who am I asking? Who am I talking to? Santa?
As most
Yeah.
children, I feel like you were very curious, and we when we're that young, we ask a lot of whys, right?
Hmm.
So it really sounded like you were trying to make sense of the practice that they were making you do, as well as like who you were, because it was kind of becoming a pressure point in the outside environment, like at schools and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think another thing was just like, I think once a year we would have mooncake, and then I think my mom was like, "Oh, I don't really know why I have mooncake," and then my dad would have some context. But I think also the reason why my mom didn't have context is because she she wasn't connected to the Chinese part. I don't think she went to school in China, so I mean she barely went to school in Vietnam too. So she didn't have just like a cultural significance to these Chinese things we were doing because she was also removed from that culture being in Vietnam. So yeah, I think it was just like a lot of lostness of we do these things, but we don't know why because we don't have connections to the why. Yeah. And I think my dad was able to learn Chinese and maybe learn about Chinese history in school. So I think that's where he got some context. But yeah, did a lot of things, didn't really know why, and so I think I also felt lost about like, is this real? Is this right? Because I think the why was so important.
Yeah, and like, your parents are supposed to have like some kind of answer about why they're making you do something if they're making you do it. you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
regularly too. It's not just like every now and then. You're just like this is like a thing that's part of our like weekly routine.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And last thing is, bunch of relatives would have different shrines near the entrance of the house, and we would go up to it to kind of bless and honor and pray there too. But also didn't know what all the photos were about. There's like different photos of different like sages and deities. I was like, okay, there's some old people on these shrines. I don't know
Ah.
what they're about, but I'm also gonna do my business of praying and hopefully get good fortune from them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hope you did.
I hope I did. Yeah, I think I probably wish for like a game system, maybe like a Game Boy or something.
So you were a gamer when you were growing up?
Oh yeah, yeah. I gamed a lot, and I think yeah, gaming was just like a place where I felt like I could kind of retreat to because I think where where we moved up to, I didn't really know anyone, so like gaming had like its online community and like yeah, it was just like a place where I could be anyone. And I think it was also like a place where I didn't have to necessarily be Asian. I guess I could be whatever I created my character to be.
Hmm.
And I can make friends with like, yeah, people around the country. Um, yeah, so it was just like a good way to express myself, to have fun, to socialize and chat with strangers, make friends. Um, yeah, like I think gaming played a pretty big part of my life growing up.
Aside from your like your identity, since we kind of already touched on like the difficulties of navigating it in schools, what else did gaming allow you to express about yourself?
Hmm. Um, I think gaming. So I think gaming was like the expression of myself where like if I made a character, I could make them wear like cool gear, have cool weapons and things like that. But I think it was also like it helped me feel a lot of different things because I think yeah,
Like
just growing up like
expressing feelings.
yeah, because I think
Mm.
if it was like playing something that had like a really beautiful story, like meaningful, beautiful moral behind it, or just like the art was really beautiful. I think I just could really tap into feeling, and I think feeling was what just um, made it so good to be like human, to really yeah. I feel like live. Yeah, I think to feel things was to live. And so yeah, I think gaming just like really brought that for me when like growing up was tough.
It was hard to express those feelings outside of the games that you played.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think just any feelings that I brought up with family, I don't think it was ever like acknowledged or validated. Where if I felt sad or felt angry, it was met with just like don't feel that, um,
Mm.
and that's not right to feel that. So I think if yeah, I think probably what I was thinking was if I okay if I can't feel that with people in my family, I can at least feel that by myself, playing this game or with maybe other people and like build friendships and people who could understand me maybe that way too.
Yeah, I'm glad you found that space for yourself because you didn't shut them down entirely. You just found a different avenue to express them.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I think it was like really easy to make friends online too. Because it felt so hard to make friends in person at my school. Just because yeah, we were so different. And yeah, so I think it also gave me a lot of community too. I felt like this is a place where I can go to and feel like maybe people have my back, or at least people want to just spend time with me.
Hmm. Do you still game with any of those friends from high school or like your
No.
childhood entirely?
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess I haven't kept in touch. And okay, the game I'm thinking about specifically, I don't know if you've heard, it's called Maple Story, but it's like
Yeah.
a game where a bunch of Asian people used to play, and probably a bunch of other people used to play back in the day, and they still do
Yeah,
now.
but it was big
Uh,
again in Asian communities.
yeah, and so I think all the friends I made in that game, they were just all around the country, and I don't even know where, because I don't think we ever talked about which cities or states we were in.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think later in high school, I started playing shooting games, and then found out that one of those friends was like in Orange County. So then when I was found myself in Orange County, I just like hit him up, and I was like, "Hey, can we hang out?" And then he was like, "Oh yeah, sure, come over." And so we played some more games together, and yeah, like we haven't kept in touch in a while, but it is cool just how online gaming led to us actually meeting in person.
Yeah, it just makes me think of like, you know, coping mechanisms that people have, and I feel like coping mechanisms get a bad rep, but
Hmm.
coping mechanisms are still a way that like we can feel better because something
Hmm.
is happening, right? And it's
Yeah.
about how much you lean on it versus actually build out other parts of your life, um, as well as having the coping mechanisms because we all have them and it's totally normal.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think during those times, middle and high school, I was addicted. I was just addicted to playing video games. And now, like, I can go back to it and just like enjoy it for what it is, and then be done with it after an hour. Yeah, because it still brings me like joy and just like fun, but I'm not relying on it like I was.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do what we gotta do when we have tough external environments.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, what characteristics do you remember about yourself when you were younger?
Huh. I think I was pretty playful as a kid. I think really playful and really goofy. And I think I really I really like just kicking the ball around. Yeah, during recess, um, we would play this game called One Touch, where you would kick a soccer ball against the backstop of just like anywhere that's on the field, and you can only kick the ball once and has to touch the backstop. And if you don't, it doesn't touch it, then you're out. And I love just kicking the ball, and I love that game because I think I was like decently good at it. And so I was like pretty proud. I was pretty proud of myself for being good at that. Yeah, I think I was like pretty sensitive too as a kid. Um, I think different things would be really like overstimulating for me, or I would have intense reactions to them. And so I think with being sensitive, I think it was also kind of like misunderstood to where like if I felt really sad about something that happened, I don't think it didn't make sense to other people, like why I was feeling so sad about it. Where I think for them it could have just been like something minor. Um, yeah, but definitely like sensitive. Um, yeah, I think those are probably the things I can come up with right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Um, so kind of on that, kind of a little bit. I'm guessing like your if your parents didn't allow you to express your emotions, they didn't really teach you how to like name your emotions either. Then.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely not. Because I don't think they really knew how to express or
Ooh,
name their
their own
name or
emotion.
express their emotions.
Hmm.
Because I think it'd just be acted on, without like being able to actually know like, oh, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling lonely, or whatever that was.
Yeah.
So I don't think I really got to tap into that until like after I started doing therapy, and like maybe later in like my mid 20s, because I think I started to realize, oh, there's something I feel in my body, and then oh, I feel it in my chest, or I feel it in my stomach, and it feels like this swirling feeling. Oh, and that swirling feeling is how I think about it is anxiety. And so I think
Mm.
it's like being able to feel that sensation in my body first to be even realize like, okay, this is the emotion I'm feeling connected to that body sensation. Um, Because I think most of the time when we're just working, we don't realize what's going on in our body. We're not aware of what's going on in our body.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
There's like a minor plug for that book. How the body keeps the score.
Oh, I guess you could. I feel like there's a lot of other books probably out there about like reconnecting with your body, whereas I think Body Keeps the Score seems to be more trauma focused and how, yeah, the trauma affects the body. So yeah, there's it's
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah. Do you have other
Yeah.
recommendations?
Ooh. That's actually something I'm trying to get recommendations for and trying to read and learn more about. Because like I want to learn to be like a somatic therapist, and someone who focuses on body sensations because I think, yeah, it's hard to be aware of that when we're all focused on being in like the headspace and like rationalizing things instead of feeling things in our body. And I think that's also just a part of like me dealing with chronic pain. I'm always feeling pain in my body, and that's like the first thing that is like in on my mind. It's like being noticing those sensations in my body.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
did that start for you? Was that in high school or like when you were younger?
Um, so I had chronic neck pain. That was like high school. I was stupid. I really liked parkour, and I tried bolting, like jumping over this staircase railing, and like flipped over and had some neck whiplash. And then, so yeah, I had like neck pain from that. After seeing a bunch of different specialists, realized that my vertebrae was just like formed differently and was misshapen, so it was just easier for it to slip out of place easier, more easily than other people. So then a few years later, like sometime in 2015, I started having pain just like in my pelvic area. And yeah, I've seen dozens of specialists for that. I've had like X-ray, MRI, CT, um, ultrasound scans, blood tests, urine tests, like all those tests, like, and everything just came out negative. And so, like, I think realizing that these tests aren't figuring out what's going on, um, and I guess like maybe Western medicine isn't able to help me out in this because the way of sensing and detecting things, there nothing's being detected, but I'm feeling pain in my body. And
Mm.
so like I'm trying to learn um about like body-based healing and body-based calming of the nervous system because I think what I'm learning is just like my body's overreacting to perceived threats, even though there may not be a threat. And so I think the body responds to being in pain because of that.
Mm. Yeah. It's pretty wild too. Like you would have thought it was like that one thing when you were parkouring as a child. But then you're like, wait, what am I actually holding in my body from my brain? You know?
Hmm. Yeah. And I think it's also like years of just I think stress on the body, years of like just like family dynamics that like accumulated into like maybe my body's nervous system getting dysregulated really, really often. And so yeah, I think like maybe that fall I had was one part of it, but also just like year longs of repetitive stress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I'm hoping that gets better, but I'm also just hoping that you can name those things more as you figure out and come in more like um in touch with your body, you know?
Hmm. Thanks.
Uh,
Yeah. I also think another thing is like I think I've been more open in advocating for myself a bit more too, because I think with chronic pain, it's so invisible. Like only you experience it, but other people can't see it. Um, and so I think, yeah, sometimes if in an office job, I'm gonna have to sit for 8 hours a day, and like, yeah, I'm gonna start feeling pain after the first hour or so and but no one else is going to see that. And so I think now I've been more open about telling people like I have this chronic pain and can I get accommodations for this so that way I don't have to sit on where it is painful. But yeah, I think that took a long time to be able to not feel shame towards and to be okay in getting support and care for.
Yeah. It's it's really hard when you're like kind of taught. I mean, at least I don't know. I've kind of always been an outspoken kid, and like my parents called me disrespectful from the age of like I don't know 5. Uh,
That's so young.
yeah, I had an argument. I think I've told you this story, but I had an argument with my grandfather that I saw like an elephant, but it was a buffalo, and like we were fighting in like this bus with other people there, and he was like, you know, I just can't believe you're arguing with me because that's like a buffalo. And I was like, Grandpa, like, I just can't believe you're arguing with me because that's clearly an elephant.
Grandpa, you're full of shit. Call Grandpa
Grandpa,
out.
you don't know these animals in your own country. I know them.
I read animal books, okay?
Yeah. Like, meanwhile, you know, I was in the Philippines in this story, and I grew up in Italy until I was 8. So I grew up in a city, and like my grandfather literally lived in a province and like tended to these animals. But here I was advocating for a freaking elephant that wasn't there.
Oh my God. Wow.
But, you
That's
know, a
so
lot of
much.
people will. There's so much what?
Oh, just like so much like certainty. Like that's powerful. And stubbornness.
Yeah, yeah. I think you know, my mom is always like, "Why are you so disrespectful? Why are you always talking back?" And I was like, "I don't fuck." I mean, I think I got it from you, Mom. I'm pretty sure like you set that example. You
Mama.
just didn't mean to. But you know, like
Man.
a lot of, I mean, even my parents, you know, they still tell me like, "Oh, don't feel that way. Don't think about it. Like, don't do that."
Hmm.
And it takes a lot of resistance, and oftentimes when we're adults and can actually think for ourselves, can we say no and like just figure things out for ourselves instead of listening to them like shutting us down a lot.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
It's finding, yeah, kind of tuning into your internal compass. Because
yeah,
yeah, it be moving everywhere when you don't know what's north and south.
it's like twitching,
It's
you
just like
know.
whoosh. It's just like
Woo-hoo-hoo.
woo.
It's like spinning in a circle.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like I
yeah.
am finding my way in this world.
Yeah, north is that way, I think.
So let's go back a little bit in time in your story, but I wanted to know like let's see, so you're in high school and you're gaming a lot, and your relationship with your parents is not very like emotionally supportive. So what else did you do with your time, and like what led you to like make a decision about college? Like, did was that assumed, you know?
Yeah, I honestly, I think I fell into maybe that part of YouTube where people were like, "Oh yeah, don't go to college, just start your own business and be a billionaire like Bill Gates and whoever else was out there." So I was like, "Yeah, you know what? Fuck college. I'm not going to college." And like
What?
yeah, like
Go
that
on.
was where my mind was. I honestly didn't want to go to college. I was like, yeah, I could be self-sufficient. And I think that was like the whole like that's the whole I don't know, the propaganda where like, oh, anyone can make it. You could do it too. Just start your own business, work your ass off and be a billionaire. And so I think I really fed into that. Um so I didn't want to go to college, but then I think what probably saved me and like became like more encouraging was just like seeing all my other cousins go to college because like I'm an only child and yeah, not having siblings, I think I wouldn't have anyone to follow, but my cousins were my older siblings. They were getting into different UC schools and I was like, okay, I guess I could go to college and maybe that's the thing I can do. Because at that time, I don't think college made sense to me. I don't think I really understood that college meant, okay, I get a degree. The degree looks good on paper, and then looking good on paper means I can get this job. And then if I get this job, I have money. Money lets me like get
Become a
out of
billionaire.
my home, become a billionaire, but also I think have access to getting out of my home and things like that. But I think in high school it really didn't make sense what college was for. And I think yeah, I'm glad I went to college because I think it opened my mind so much. But yeah, it was not on my mind. And I think maybe because my mom only went to school up to second grade, and then my dad, he had like some community college, but he didn't finish. So I just had really no basis for like what it was supposed to do. And I don't think my parents even explained it either, other than go to college, get a good job. Um, and yeah, then you'll be successful and whatever, whatever. Um, but yeah, I think the other part you said was just like, how did I spend my time? So I think besides the video games, I think high school, I started getting involved with like different orgs. So I was part of Key Club, and that was like where all the Asians were at too. All the Asians were in Key Club. If you were in Key Club, it was like 99% Asian. And so I think I found maybe some community there. Um, and also like things to do. I think Key Club gave me things to do over the weekend because you had like this quota of hours, or no, yeah, you had the amount of hours you were supposed to meet. And so that also looked good on college paper and admission. So that was like another reason why I did that too. Um, I also like joined the tennis team, but I got chicken pox, like missed out on like tennis one year. I tried
Rough.
joining the swim team, but I got cut because I couldn't do the 100-meter like test. I only got to like 50 meters and I was really tired. Um, but yeah, I think I also then had like a very small group of friends. So then we had like chance to just like hang out during the weekends and after school. Um, yeah, I think we kind of played Yu-Gi-Oh! And like video games. So yeah, I think high school is better. High school, it felt better. But yeah, still definitely felt kind of like that loneliness of, yeah, just not being around people who had similar life experiences.
Like you were around more Asians, but they weren't from like immigrant families now was like the next layer,
Yeah,
I guess. Okay.
yeah. I think the Asians, yeah, I think so. That's where I think class became a thing I started thinking about. But it
Hmm.
wasn't really, I didn't have the words for class. All I knew is that like
Yeah.
these Asians are different.
They
They
had
have big
stuff.
houses. Yeah, they
Yeah.
had
Okay.
stuff, big houses. They have nice cars. Um, and they have like a kind of more like less dysfunctional family. And I think I kind of resented the Asian people, the Asian students in my school for that. I just knew we were similar, but we were different.
Hmm. That's a hard thing to like come to terms with as like a high schooler, because you're like,
Hmm.
ah, Asians. I like it, you kind of like got a little piece filled in a little bit, and then you're like,
Hmm.
oh, but there's this other stuff like they're Asian, but also they're not my kind of Asian
My
almost.
people, yeah, my kind of people, Asian who fled a war as refugees and came here with like no money. And
Right.
like possibly, yeah, they could have also fled a war and had no money. But I think just seeing them have these big houses in the nicer neighborhoods, that that was like, okay, I think yeah, we're kind of different then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's tough.
Hmm. Yeah, it was tough.
Um, so what schools did you want to go to? And then which one did you end up going to?
Yeah, I think at the time, I think I knew I wanted to stay in California. Um, I don't think I really had my sights on anywhere outside California because I think it seems scary to venture really far from California. Um, so I considered like all the UCs. So I basically applied to all the UCs. I applied to like the three bigger, I guess at the time it was like well known or more popular Cal States. So it was like SDSU, Cal State Pomona, and then Cal Poly SLO. And then I was like, oh, Pepperdine could be cool. And I don't know why I thought about Pepperdine. But something about
Probably
it was
good
like, oh,
marketing.
yeah, I think so. Maybe I got a really good flyer that had cool colors. But I think maybe it was near the beach, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool to live near a beach town. But San Diego is a beach city, and I don't know why. But yeah, I did apply to UCs. I didn't get into Berkeley and LA because everyone fucking applies there. It's so competitive. Um,
Yeah,
I
everyone that's at UCSD usually doesn't get into UCLA and UC Berkeley.
yeah. All the
Yeah.
rejects go to SD.
I
Um,
was so bitter because, like, I was number seven in my class, and the top
uh,
six got into UCLA, and
oh
three of them
wow.
went to other schools.
Oh man, so that could have been you.
Yeah, it literally could have. And I was like,
Uh,
fuck this. This is it. Like, what is it? I'm just a number to you. And three of these people aren't going to your school because they're going to better schools. Like,
oh
one
right,
went to
okay.
Duke, one went to Irvine, and then one went somewhere else. And I was just like,
Wow. So
number
if you had
seven.
went, we would have never met.
No,
And
that's
yeah,
true.
dang. That's a wild alternative history.
I know, but I always wonder, because I would like all of this stuff about how they pick. I'm just like, really? Just the top six? You gave admissions to just the top
Oh,
six?
that's literally the criteria?
I don't know, but that's what
Oh,
happened
okay,
in my
yeah.
school
Okay.
because we all talk to each
Yeah,
other, I mean, my classmates.
I see. Okay. Yeah. It's wild what is taken into like consideration. Like I got into Davis and I actually really wanted to go to Davis. But I think at the time people in my family were like, "Oh, UC San Diego is better. You're gonna get more job offers if you go to this school because of that." So I listened to the family because of that. But I would have went to Davis and yeah, it
I
would have
got
been
into
cool.
Davis too, by the way.
Oh, really? Okay. So we
See,
both
we
could have
could
went
have
to
met. We
Davis.
could have met then. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that would have been cool. Um, but yeah, I still want to visit Davis sometime. And I don't regret going to UCSD. I think I I had a lot of regret during that time, but I've come to terms with it, and I'm happy like the path I chose and what got me here. So like yeah, chose UCSD instead of Davis, but I still want to visit Davis sometime.
So, what was your experience at UCSD like? And
Oh,
did you
I think
live on campus? Because you're local, so I don't know if you commuted to and from school or actually lived in the dorms.
um yeah, so I did live on campus and for a good 4 years actually. And like I knew at that point I needed to get out of my house. I didn't want to be home. It wasn't healthy for me in any way to be home. And so yeah, I lived on campus for 4 years. It was honestly an adjustment. It was pretty lonely. Um, I think I really struggled to find community, and so this was like similar. This was a journey through working through like me hating my Asian parts, because I knew that when I was trying to find friends and find community, I would specifically notice like, okay, this org has lots of Asians. I'm not gonna be part of it. I don't want to be part of it. And then
There's
I'd
a
find
lot of
other.
Asians in UCSD.
Oh yeah, so many Asian people. And so I was like, okay, I need to find other orgs where there's no Asian people or like fewer Asian people. And I think part of me wanted to
Ooh.
stand out and maybe I wanted to be special in that way, or at least maybe blend in with people and not identify with being Asian. So yeah, like joined this one org where it's like the adult version or college version of Boy Scouts. So like we did a bunch of outdoor adventures, learned how to like shoot rifles and guns and bows and arrows. So it was like very outdoorsy stuff like that. Yeah, so during the first 2 years, I was like very much in like a I don't want to be around Asian people phase. And I think that was like probably one of the lonelier parts of like my years. Um, like I had a lot of roommates. Oh,
Oh, you cut out, Alex.
uh-oh.
Let's see.
Oh,
You
oh,
cut
okay,
out
we're
for a
back.
little bit.
Okay. What was the last part you caught? Because I don't know where I stopped.
You said that was one of the lonelier parts of college, was the first 2 years.
Yeah, yeah, because I think not only did I want to identify as Asian, I think I just felt like a disconnection from other Asian people, so I didn't want to be around Asian people. Um, and so yeah, it was tough trying to find community during those years. Um, I had also started working, and I also joined like a bunch of different orgs trying to fill that like emptiness of like finding community. And so I think I found myself just like working, 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 doing org stuff. And I think my day would start at 8 and then also end and then like end at 11 at night. And so I was so exhausted just trying to do everything I could to find community. And I think what happened in my mind was like do good work. Um, and and I think that was also where I started to become a little bit more aware about politics, the elections, because that was like when Bernie Sanders became really big, in like 2015, 2016. So I think I started getting more of an understanding of like how politics impacted me and how I could see myself changing politics to make things better. Um, so I think that was like towards the last year of college. But I think for the first 2 years, I was just swimming around trying to find friends, trying to find community. I was in an electrical engineering program, which I hated. I think the second quarter of doing classes, I was like, I don't really give a damn about the stuff I'm studying. Why am I doing this? And so every quarter, I was trying to find a new major to switch into. I was like, okay, maybe I can be environmental systems. Wait, no. Maybe I can be a structural engineer. Wait, no. Maybe I can be a music major. Oh, wait, no. So I was just like flipping back and forth of like what I wanted to do with my life. Um, because just electrical engineering didn't feel fulfilling for me.
It also sounded like you were filling a lot of your time, so you were so disjointed in multiple parts of your college experience, like trying to pick where to find friends as well as
Hmm.
like a path for your future.
Hmm.
Um, I'm always curious about this because I was one of those students that made friends with their professors, and I took them out to like lunch and stuff. So I was
Hmm.
wondering if you like, sought advice from like resources on campus, or maybe you didn't even consider that because you didn't know it was an option at the time.
Yeah, with the professors part, I don't think I didn't feel really connected to any of my professors, in the engineering department. Um, but I think when I was started doing kind of like the social studies humanities classes, I felt like a more human connection with the professors and like went
What
to the office
human?
hours.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I think it just felt like they were more of a person who cared, whereas I think the engineering professors, they were there because they were required to teach a course because they were getting funding from the university for their
Mm,
thesis or whatever research they were doing. So they were just there just to fulfill the requirements.
yeah.
Um,
And what
whereas,
social science humanities classes are you talking about?
oh, you know it, MMW.
Oh, that
Oh,
was Making of the Modern World, which
yeah,
is
yeah.
it's a writing requirement with so UCSD, UC San Diego, and UC, by the way, stands for University of California. It's a series of schools within California that people go to. They're public universities. And then UCSD has like they have 8 colleges now. So basically, they have 8 micro campuses on campus, and each of those micro campuses has different one living areas and designs in that part of the campus, and they have different requirements. So, like Making of the Modern World was the writing requirement for Eleanor Roosevelt College, which Alex and I were part of. But that's not how we met.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so you took MMW, and
Mm-hmm.
tell me about that.
Yeah, so I think it was like 5 quarters of courses from like the beginning of civilization all the way up to the present. And so I think the first 3 classes, which were like beginning of civilization up to the 1800s or 1700s, I was like, I really don't give a damn about this. And I know we just have to write like a 20-page paper or 10-page paper about it. But I think it was the last two where it was like pretty recent history where it felt like it was like really relevant and shaped where I fit in the context of like who I was, where my family was, and like what was the future going to be like. Because like I think we talked about the Vietnam War, we talked about the World Wars, and then I think probably the course was up to like 9/11 and like the 2008 financial crisis, and then leading into the elections. And I remember one of my professors had like a just final message to everyone during the last day of class, and I think he said like, when you leave here, like I want you to make sure. This is an interpretation. I forget what he said specifically, but like try to hang on to your values and your sense of identity because once you're out in the real world, you're gonna people just become cogs in the machine, and like sometimes people just kind of die internally at that point because they get sucked into the machine of working, trying to find and live the American dream. And so, yeah, his message is like, don't be that cog and be true to yourself and be cognizant of how the modern world, making the modern world, the course title has like shaped us up to this point. And so I think I'm just really grateful for how like that and a bunch of other different courses that really reframed how I thought about the world and also just like myself.
What professor was that? Was that Chang or Herbst?
That was Chang. That was Chang.
Okay, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't think I ever had him, but everyone thought said he was really cool. I remember I took one of his classes once for fun, um, but like I just went
Yeah.
during a random lecture.
Okay, got it. Yeah, he was really cool. I think he was such a smart guy. Um,
Yeah.
and I think he was like pretty personable. And I think it's like I have a skewed representation because like he felt very personable. All of my like electrical engineering professors, I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. Like I didn't really want to build a relationship with him. Whereas he like I was like, oh, you could actually be a mentor. Like he feels like he cares and is looking out.
Yeah, I like that quote too. Like, don't be a cog, be cognizant.
Oh.
That's my
That's
abbreviation of what he
I like
said.
that. I like that. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
good. Put it on a t-shirt.
Yo, it'll be the title of this episode.
Yeah. And I guess cognizant is kind of like the equivalent of being woke now. But damn. Yeah, be woke. Stay woke.
I'm not gonna use the word woke in that context and make a profit
Yeah.
off of it.
No, no. Yeah. No, no. This is not for
We're gonna
profit
use
t-shirts.
cognizant. I'm gonna use cognizant.
Okay. Stay
Yeah,
cognizant.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that
I
though.
like that.
Um, so you were very intrigued by these humanities courses, but I happen to know you stayed within engineering after. So I'm just curious what your processing was there. Was it like the pressure of like I already did my engineering degree, this just makes the most sense? How did you make that next decision after college?
Yeah, yeah. So I did say I stuck it out through my engineering program because I think I was 2 or 3 years in. I was like, ah, shit. Okay, I should just finish it and then figure out how to merge um, this thing I'm doing, engineering, and also with like more of a passion, which was at the time like, oh, climate change is fucking scary, and how can I um, support and also help with solutions for climate change. And I think that branched together into like, okay, I could do green building design, make buildings more efficient, design them more efficiently so that they use less energy, and then that also can help, uh, I guess, mitigate climate change. So at that point in time, I don't think I had a clear path like, okay, mental health. But I did know climate change was a passion and I wanted to merge that with engineering. And then I think also during that time, I started going to their counseling services and joining their support groups. And so then that was started what like percolating of like, okay, mental health is really important. These other students who I'm in support groups with are actually really struggling too. They also feel really lonely and lost and confused. And I think that was a
Was
point
that your
where I felt,
first exposure? Oh, go ahead. Finish that and I'll ask you a
oh
question.
yeah, yeah. So I think I realized like, oh, actually, I thought it was just me that was alone on this campus. I thought something was wrong with me and why I felt alone, and it was all my fault of why I felt lonely. But then I realized like, oh, these other seven students also feel the same thing. Um, and so I think that clicked a light bulb for me. Like, there's something powerful here about mental health.
Was that your first exposure to mental health services? So
Like
this is
first
in
and second.
college, right?
Yeah, this was during undergrad. So I had went to their like they call it CAPS. It's like counseling psychological services, and you would have like a one-on-one therapist, but because they're booked the hell up, you would see this person once every like 3 months. And so I was like, I wasn't finding any of that helpful because if I'm gonna talk to this person every 3 months, I'm just catching them up, and then that's the end of the session. Um, Whereas these support groups were every single week, same time, same day, and then you're with them for like 8 to 12 weeks. And so that was, yeah, I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. And then yeah, I remember in our last session of the support group, I like ended up crying for like half an hour in that session, and I I think after crying, I just started giggling at everything. Because I don't know, I think something just completely released inside me. Um, where when someone was just like moving a chair to clean up, I just started giggling like crazy, and everything was so funny after that like deep cry. And I was like, oh, I've never felt so alive and so joyful after that.
What do you think you released?
I think it was a lot of guilt. I was really guilty of not being like a good son and
You're
not a
feeling
good,
guilty, you mean?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Feeling a lot of feeling guilty about not being a good son, and I was like thinking a lot about like how I was like disappointing my mom and like not being a good enough child for her. And so like I let that out on our last session, and yeah, it was like it was a deep cry in front of everyone.
Yeah. So you realized you were like feeling guilty, but not actually guilty of doing that thing.
Um, I don't know. I don't think I made that differentiation. I don't think I actually was able to separate that. I think I felt
Mm.
guilty, and I think it felt so real that like, oh, I also am doing shitty things.
Mm.
Um, yeah, because I think it was probably around the time where I was like, my mom and I were having a lot of arguments, and I like would snap back at her and also yell back at her. And so I felt a lot of guilt, like, oh, a good child, a good son would never yell back at their mom. And so like I think I felt that really strongly.
Mm. Glad you found a space to release it for the first time.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think that was like decades of stuff just like out in a really intense moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that was what kind of started like the mental health journey.
Mm. Makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, so how did you make the decision to like what you were gonna decide what you were gonna do next after college?
Yeah. So I think part of me was like dreading engineering. So after graduating, I was like, well, shit. Okay, now I gotta find companies that do green engineering of some sort, or like are thinking about climate change and can somehow tie into engineering. So I found like this building architectural firm based like in the Bay Area. Um, and so I got an internship with them. To the next year or two later, I landed a full-time job with them. And so I was with them for a good 2 years. Um, and like yeah, the company was like pretty good. Um, but I also felt that something was missing in that. I felt like my work wasn't meaningful, and I felt like I wasn't connected to the people that we were like doing this work for. Because I think in engineering, my understanding is you have someone trying to build or develop something. Um, they have money, then they hire architects and engineers to build it. And so that was part of what my org was doing, or my company was doing. We were doing the design of the buildings, but we weren't connected to any of the people that were going to use it, um, or anything related to just like people. It was just like you're on the computer 8 hours a day thinking about where do these outlets go? Where do these switches for lights
You're
go?
literally a
Where
cog, Alex.
Yeah, literally a cog. Um, yeah, and so I was just like on the computer all day. And so I think after the first year, I was like, oh man, I really want to figure out what my next move is. So started like tutoring as a volunteer at at a school, and I was like, oh, this I actually really like tutoring. Like I like hanging out with this fifth grader, and he does this Naruto run sometimes. It was really cute. So I think that was like, okay, I like working with kids. I like working with people. Um, I like called up my old boss when I was at the sustainability office I worked for as an undergrad. Just getting her advice on like what can I do with my life right now. I'm really unsure if engineering is right for me. Um, yeah, we chatted about that. I think I didn't really have a sense of direction from that. And so I think the biggest thing from this was I had health insurance now from this job. And so I started seeing a therapist, like a one-on-one therapist, and like consistently for years. Um, so I think when I was doing these sessions with this therapist, I was just like crying every single session. And then it kept being revolved around themes of feeling guilt towards my family, not feeling like I was a good child, um, working through kind of like traumatic things and scary things that happened during childhood. And after every session, I was like, I feel so much lighter, and I feel like happy after the sessions, after like letting it out. And I think I started to realize, like, oh shit, this is like powerful. Like I feel like something in my soul is just like healing and feeling alive from just doing this therapy session. And I think I was like, okay, I think I really want to be a therapist. This is so cool that I am like getting so much out of this. Um, and so I think that's the part where it became really clear, like, okay, I do want to do mental health. Um, and the whole reason why I saw this therapist too. So quick backtrack before this. I was like deep in a lot of chronic pain at this time. So this is like 2018. Saw a bunch of different specialists. They couldn't help me out. I saw a pelvic floor physical therapist. She asked me about my family. Started crying when I talked about my family, and then she was like, "Hey, your pelvis is like loosened up after just like letting those emotions out. Maybe seeing a therapist would be good for you because like it could be something that's like emotionally going on and paining you that's causing it to manifest like physically." And so that's how I got jumped into mental health or like getting services from a therapist. Um, yeah, I'm trying to figure out what happened after that point.
What happened after you were living in Oakland and working an engineering job and going to therapy?
Yeah, yeah. So I think, okay, after I had that spark realization of I want to be a therapist, I started looking into programs. There was like a program based in San Francisco. Um, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to commit 2 to 3 years here at that tuition. Maybe I'll
How
figure out
did you
other
like living
programs.
in the Bay Area? How did you like
The
living in
Bay
the Bay Area?
Area, yeah, the Bay Area, I think I like some parts of it, but also I also felt lonely up there too. I think the things I liked were that like there it felt like pretty raw and pretty real. Like I think Oakland, you would just see unhoused people like everywhere. In San Francisco, you just see unhoused people everywhere. So I think that part felt real. Because I think poverty was also pretty extreme there, where you could walk
I think it's
into
like
or like
the poverty and wealth is the extreme, you know?
yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
one
also
thing to
the
see,
wealth.
yeah, it's one thing to see unhoused people. It's another thing to see it on like a street that sells $20 sandwiches and like
Hmm.
$10 like random stuff, and like you have all of these
Yeah,
big tech companies that live and like thrive in SF, but the city doesn't take care
exactly.
of its like people that can't afford to live there anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Because I think also I like being in San Diego, I was never in the downtown area. So not only was in downtown, but also seeing like, yeah, huge encampments of tents. So for the first time in that way too. Um, so I think, yeah, seeing the wealth inequality, seeing the poverty, like I kind of appreciated having the BART, which is like the public transit, that got you region to region mostly, but like not really deep into different neighborhoods. So I like got by without a car when I just take the BART, and so that was nice. Um, it was cool to feel like pretty politically aligned with kind of Bay Area progressiveness um, too. Yeah, I think there was just like so much forward thinking and innovation being up there. I think there was like buildings, initiatives, orgs that were doing such cool things that I would never see in San Diego. So I think it was like it felt like the spirit of like new knowledge, new ideas, new things that were happening. And so I think that those were the parts that were really cool. The food was amazing. Like some food, yeah, like a lot of good restaurants. Um, I think access to nature was also pretty nice because I think San Diego is like kind of deserty, dry, shrubby cactus, whereas being in the Bay Area, there'd be redwood trees, big, big, tall trees with lots of foliage. And yeah, it was just like so relaxing, so beautiful to be out in nature in the Bay Area. And so I think those were the a lot of the positives I felt. I think the not so good thing was this was my first time living outside San Diego, so I really struggled to find community. I was also joining a bunch of different orgs and trying to make friends from that. Um, I think I kind of like wallowed a bit in like just maybe feeling guilty too again, where it was like, oh, I'm not doing enough to make friends. Why aren't I making friends? Because I'm putting myself out there, but friends and community isn't coming. So I was stuck in kind of like a shame spiral when I was up there. Feeling perpetually lonely and really trying to do things to not feel lonely, but still finding myself feeling lonely.
I feel like it's very common after graduating from college where you
Hmm.
have exposure to like tens of thousands, literally tens of thousands students just by
Hmm.
walking out of your dorm to, you know, having a full-time job, having I don't know
Hmm.
how big your company was, but then everything having to take a lot more work because you have to like find
Hmm.
communities, like you have to look for groups. So you have to know what you're into and like what your interests are, and then you
Hmm.
also have to like, you know, actually put yourself out there to the new people that you meet. And maybe you only see them once a
Yeah.
month, you know, because like the groups only meet so often.
Right, right. Yeah, there it's all of that. And also I think like if you're in college and you're like living on campus, you have a walkable mini city right there where if you want to get food, you want to get go grocery shopping, that's all on campus, like a 10-minute walk away maybe. You can bike around
Yeah.
campus. You don't need a car if you just live on campus. And I think that's like what was so cool. Everything was so accessible to you.
Yeah, literally thousands, tens of thousands of students outside of your dorm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So many
Like
people, so
that's
much
like
access
not
to them.
an that's not an overestimation. That's how many students were at UCSD.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands of students.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think living in the Bay Area was really tough, and that was for a good 2 years. And then COVID hit, and then so during that time, I was already contemplating like maybe the Bay Area isn't where like I need to be right now. Maybe it's like moving back to San Diego because I think while doing therapy, I was like healing through a lot of like my hurt with my mom, my family. And so I think that also that distance away made me like miss them. And so I think there were like
Mm.
just different things that were calling me back to San Diego during that time, right when COVID had hit. So that
Yeah.
became like a perfect point where COVID hit in March. In May, I got laid off, and I was already in San Diego working remotely. And so it just made sense. Like, okay, I should just move back to San Diego then.
Got you.
So then was like after that was like a good 2 years of unemployment, and that's when I think the summer protests with George Floyd happened, BLM. I think that's what also like sparked a lot of change for myself, where like a lot of like friends discussions and group chats became like really emotionally charged. There was like a lot of conflicts and conversations about social justice, and like I got called out by my friend, and I think that's probably what really helped me because I think I was so unaware of how I was being problematic and having problematic ideas, where calling me out really made me reflect like, okay, there's so much for me to learn here. So then I started getting involved in like a climate justice organization. So that's like a big pivot from engineering into like climate justice political organizing.
What did they call you out on, if you want to share? Curious.
Yeah, trying to remember what it was. Yeah, okay. So these were friends that I had made in Sweden when I studied abroad. One friend had made a lot of like racist claims and things about how Sweden was not a racist country, and then another friend had a lot of like counterexamples of like how Sweden was racist and acted in racist ways. And so I like tried jumping in and like being the mediator between them two. Um, and then that friend who was saying Sweden was racist ended up just like calling me out and was saying like, how do you how can you support BLM when like you can't even see like what's going on in the injustices is here, and like you're not even standing up for this, like you're being neutral in the situation. Um, and so I think it took me some time to really wrestle and figure out like what my blind spots were. But I think being called out like that, I realized like, okay, there is something I really need to learn because I'm not seeing it. And that's when, yeah, it was just like a lot of learning about systemic issues, learning about how racism got internalized and things like that. So this took a few years.
Yeah. I mean, it also like, if one person's saying like Sweden is not racist, but I'm guessing that person was from Sweden.
Yeah, so they're both Swedish. One of them is like Swedish, like white Swedish. The other one is like Kurdish Swedish. So she was like an immigrant. Her family were immigrants
Right.
to Sweden, and so yeah, very different dynamic too.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, like there's a lot of countries that look very to a person that matches the skin tone of the country, everything's
Hmm.
fine, you know? They don't know. They don't experience the things that immigrant people experience.
Hmm.
Even if the immigrant person is the same color, like they know the difference between them. Just like you knew the difference between you and other Asians in your high school, you know?
Hmm.
Like you were Asian,
Yeah.
so you thought you were the same. You thought you were
Hmm.
Swedish, you thought you were Asian, but there was like a stark difference between that. Um,
Yeah.
and plus, like countries that are mostly homogenous, it's really hard to to really say like what racism looks like if there's just not that many
Hmm.
people that look different too.
Right, right. Yeah, I think the minority percentage is way lower than it is in the US. So it's harder. It's much harder to track.
Yeah. Hmm. So that's interesting. You kind of got like a little push there.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely got called out, and I was also scared of losing that friend. So I think I realized I needed to listen, and learn too. Um, so yeah, I guess am I still explaining how I got into mental health? This feels like a very long story.
I never asked you how you got into mental health. I asked you
Oh, okay.
what your decisions were after college.
Okay,
And then
got it.
you're the one that made the mental health thread,
Ah,
just
I
for
see, I see. Okay.
clarification. Like I never
Okay, got it.
asked about mental health in specific. You just started
I see.
talking
Okay.
about group therapy, then you started talking about getting a therapist. Like I know you're like you just did your master's in therapy just like this past 2 years and are trying to do that now. But I
Hmm.
never asked you that, just for
Okay, got it.
clarification.
Whoops, my bad. My
That was
bad.
you.
All me. Okay. I'm the problem. It's me.
Yes, yes. Please don't copyright us, Taylor Swift.
Oh no. Oh no, please. This is for
Um,
educational purposes only.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I never asked that. You kind of fed in, like you were trying to connect that thread throughout answering.
Okay, got it.
The what
Got it,
was
got
your
it.
decision after after college?
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay.
Um, so it kind of brings you more to the present, and now I'll ask you about mental health, because now it's relevant. You know, like it's more
Hmm.
immediate to you now, as far as
Hmm.
like what. So you move back to San Diego. You pivot from being an engineer to becoming like climate activist, and then
Hmm.
you're also considering a different path. And what does
Hmm.
that different path towards mental health look like?
Yeah. So I think I was really unsure. I was like, okay, since I have like 2 years of experience as a volunteer in like political organizing, maybe I could be a political organizer. And then I think I felt myself just like so unequipped, and also it didn't feel right. I don't think I had the uh, personality and the ability to be an organizer.
The
So
grit.
then the grit, yeah,
The
yeah.
grit
And
to
so,
lead people in that very specific way. Like,
yeah, yeah, that felt
as a
really
political
daunting.
organizer. Yeah, that's not me
Yeah,
either.
yeah, felt really daunting. Yeah. Um, and so I think at this point in time, I was in my climate org, I was running a storytelling training. I was like, it was like stories can really pull people into the movement because it captures like emotions that they can really relate to. And so during the storytelling training, I was coached to do the storytelling training, and then I would work with different members of my org to coach them. And so I think on two different occasions working with them, um, trying to figure out their story, they're like, "Oh, this feels kind of like therapy. Like you would be a good therapist." So I think those were the two big sparks where it brought me back to like when I was seeing a therapist and like, oh shit, this is something I thought about 2 years ago, but I kind of ignored for a while and put on hold. So when these two people said that, I started reconsidering it. And then the roommate I was living with, that we were living with at the time, was in the program that I went to, and he was like, "Hey, my program's opening up applications if you want to apply. They close next month." So I started scrambling to apply to that program, um, because I was like, okay, this is the shot that I can really get. It's gonna be based in San Diego. It's gonna be based in City Heights, where my family's from. It's very social justice oriented. Um, and to me, I was like, okay, this feels like I'm coming back home in a way that feels like whole. Because we settled here in City Heights. We left it. I left it even further to be in Oakland, but now not only am I coming back to San Diego, I'm coming back to where my family settled. and I'm going to do this program here, which is based on social justice and community mental health. And so all of those just made so much sense. And I was like, okay, I need to apply. I need to get into the program. It was the only program I applied to, and I got in. And that was pretty miraculous for me, like not having any mental health background.
Cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty wild. Um, Also, I forgot. I worked as a crisis counselor for the crisis text line, so as a volunteer. So I think that was right before that too. So got
Mm.
to experience what it was like to actually support people when they were going through like one of the roughest points in their lives.
Yeah. And so, what was that program like?
Um, the crisis text line, or like my actual master's
Your
program.
your master's program? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that program was really, really fucking hard. It was like group therapy on steroids, with 30 other people who wanted to be therapists who were also into social justice. And I think we all had like a really strong drive, um, to do like really good social justice work. And I think also realized for me that like a lot of my pain and unhealed stuff was getting in the way of like being able to be there for other people. So I think part of the program was like you gotta work through your own shit so that you can help people with their shit.
Shocking, right?
Yeah, yeah. I know. Yeah, because like okay, so there's this book I'm reading right now, which is it's called Rebel Healing. Um,
Hmm.
Transforming ourselves when the systems around us make us sick. And yeah, it's talking about how people who are trying to fight for social justice but are not healed in their own wounds can end up creating a lot more harm, and can end up doing same things that the people who harmed them did. And so yeah, that's something this program really emphasized for us to heal through our own stuff. And yeah, I think that's what made it so exhausting every single day to work through your stuff. Um, and then to also build consensus with 30 other people. Like that's crazy. And I think it was to
Yeah.
model like what democracy looks like, where it's not majority rules. But yeah, it was tough. Like I think it was really easy to default to majority rules. Building consensus is tough because you don't want to be that one person who says no when 29 other people say yes. Like, yeah, like it doesn't feel good to be that person.
Yeah. It's pretty wild stuff. We don't have to get
Hmm.
into what that program was like on the podcast, but um, I've known a couple other French that were in that program, and it's a wild thing.
Hmm.
um, I wanted to ask you because this kind of came into my mind when you were talking about like what that experience was like. I want to know what you got out of it that you want to commit to as a therapist that you don't want to do.
Hmm. What is it that I learned from the program that I don't want to do as a therapist? That, yeah, okay. Hmm. I think I think realizing that people are probably the experts of their lives and to not give advice, for things that I may not know about or have like clarity on. Because I think one thing I learned was just like advice is kind of framed through your own life experiences and is like projected onto other people. It can be projected onto other people. Um, in the example, someone's like, "Oh, don't live here," and then maybe it's because that person had a bad experience, but for you to have to give that advice and to have so much power on that person's life, because if they trust you, they're going to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to listen to your advice. And so I think that's where it can be really harmful, when therapists give advice. And I think while you can still give like a different perspective, so that that person can figure out for them, is that the right choice for them? Um, like, yeah, definitely, I don't want to give advice because my experiences and my learnings and mishaps may not apply to that person.
Okay, that's a good one.
Hmm.
Um, we can wrap this up a little bit. So what, Alex, would you say are like the conditions that you want for yourself moving forward?
Yeah, I like that question. Um, so I want my home environment to be a safe, nurturing place, like emotionally, but also physically. Like I'm trying to just redesign my room and have it be brighter, because I think when you have brighter rooms, it feels bigger. And I think just brighter colors feel more comforting to me. Um, so I want to make my room cozy. I want to get more pillows, make it into like a fort. It'd be really cool. Um,
Oh, we're doing
oh,
forts. Forts next time. I'm coming over.
okay. We'll get the couch cushions. We'll get the blankets. Yeah, we're
All
doing that
right.
the whole thing.
Sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. Really making my room feel like a sanctuary, because growing up, I think the room was just really functional, where you have a bed, you have a desk and a light. But like, yeah, it didn't feel like a place I could retreat to and feel cozy and safe. And so I want that for me right now. In my home, like I want to live with people who are also like healing minded. Um, in like they understand how their own stuff and shit affects them and how that can be projected and onto other people. Um, outside of the home, like I want my workplace to be a place where I'm not exploited, because therapists are, especially therapists who come straight out of grad school, they just, yeah, they're going to be exploited. Like they're cheaper labor for them to be given lots of clients to see, and that's not sustainable for a therapist's health. And also not good for the client if your therapist is drained and exhausted at shit. Um, so yeah, I want my work environment to be nurturing, um, and not a place where I dread and feel exhausted by.
Cool. I like that. I like that.
Hmm.
Last question for you. We close out the podcast. Is what is a message you have for our listeners?
Hmm. Yeah, I think I'm sticking with um the rest part. I read I finished Rest is Resistance sometime last week, and I'm realizing just like they talk about grind culture, um where like we have a culture of like your value comes from working your ass off and trying to fill your time with productive things, and when you aren't productive, feeling guilt and shame and all of that. And yeah, like I think I just want people to rest, spend some more time with people you really enjoy being around, um, and get out into nature. Yeah, like our bodies aren't made to be a cog to make someone else rich. Like our bodies deserve rest. Yeah, like I don't think the cavemen people back in the day were just like, oh, gotta get to my 9 to 5. Let me let me log in and deal with my HR software. Like they were probably lounging.
Coming
Yeah,
at
oh,
all
try
HR
not to get eaten
professionals.
by lions. Trying not to get eaten by lions and mammoths, and maybe trying to find berries that aren't poisonous. But like, yeah, hopefully having fun. I hope they weren't sitting in an office cubicle.
Mm, got you. Um,
Yeah.
is there a way that people can find you? I don't know if you want people to contact you, or is there stuff that you do that you might want people to check out?
Mm, right now, I don't really have like a wide social media presence. So I don't have anything that people can necessarily follow right now. But yeah, I have to maybe create more of like a public profile. But I think right now I do want to just be a little bit more on the low key private side.
Cool,
Um, yeah,
cool. No worries. Thanks for being on a podcast, Alex. It was a pleasure to interview you.
yeah, it was really cool to be here too. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'll see you around.
Okay, see you soon.
My computer's going real slow. I hit the stop. And thank you for listening to this episode of Creating Your Conditions, a work of understanding conditions we are given, forged from, and we have yet to face. You can follow us on Instagram at Creating Your Conditions, which you can also find in the description of this episode. My name is Van, and it's been my pleasure to be your host. Keep creating, and I'll catch you in the next episode.